Welcome to another episode of Public Budgeting Systems Insight. Today, we're diving into Chapter 12 of the 10th edition of Public Budgeting Systems by Lee, Johnson, and Joyce. The focus: budget execution and control, a core process that turns budgets and their plans into reality. If you're a public sector professional, a student of public administration, or anyone that's just generally interested in how public money gets spent responsibly, this is for you. So, with that being said, let's jump on in. Let's talk first a little bit about understanding budget execution and control. Chapter 12 starts with an important discussion. Budgeting doesn't end when the budget is approved. That's when the real work begins. This chapter explores a couple key concepts: the importance of execution as an engine of service delivery, the mechanisms government use to control expenditures, and challenges like political influences and revenue volatility. And finally, how transparency and accountability uphold public trust and performance. In short, it's about how we manage the dollars once the plan is on the paper. We're going to talk as we go through the class. We'll be spending time talking about how that plan gets to paper, but this is from the perspective of, okay, you've gone through the process and now the budget's been approved, and where do you go with it? Budget execution brings budgets to life. Budget execution is the process of implementing the approved budget. It's not just about spending. It's about managing how, when, and why we spend the money. Some of the key activities to consider as you read through the chapter: allocating funds to agencies and departments based on authorized appropriation, monitoring expenditures to ensure alignment with allocations, and making adjustments as conditions change, whether due to revenue shortfalls or evolving policy priorities. And if you just look around you on the day-to-day, you can see where policy has tremendous impact on where funds are being spent, how they're being spent, and the impact it has. Execution is dynamic. Leaders must remain agile, transparent, and disciplined. Think about that. Agile, transparent, and disciplined. To every one of you, how do you balance the needs against the wishes? And how do you maintain a sense of discipline in doing so? That's a key question that we'll talk about. So there are expenditure control mechanisms. So let's break them down. These are some of the tools of the trade when we talk about expenditure control. There are two types. Pre-audit controls. These are proactive. They verify funds availability before any obligation is made. Think of it as a double check before swiping the government card. Then there's the post-audit controls. These are retrospective, ensuring that spending aligns with laws, policies, and performance targets after the funds are spent. And remember, we talked a little bit of the different types of budgets before, where you have the zero-based budget, but you also have a performance or program-based budget. A lot of what we talk about here is in the post-audit control function. Some of the tools you might hear: FMIS, Financial Management Information Systems, to give you real-time oversight; periodic reporting, monthly or quarterly updates that allow for corrections in the mid-cycle; and of course, performance monitoring, to assess whether money spent is generating the intended outcomes. Think back, performance-based budget. These mechanisms protect the integrity of the budget process. So what might be some of the challenges in budget execution? Certainly, execution is not without its hurdles. One major issue: revenue viability. Economic downturns can wreck projections, especially for tax-dependent budgets. Think about the challenges with tax as being your primary income. And we talked a little bit about real estate tax, sales tax, and how volatile those can be depending on the times you're in. Then, of course, there's political pressure. This can also distort priorities. Just think about today. Elected officials may reallocate funds to visible projects at the expense of essential services. So think about that. Reallocate funds to visible projects at the expense of essential service. Can you think of a time where money has been reallocated within your budget cycle for something that is more, well, they say visible, but I would also say more trendy at the time, and money has been taken away from other services to accommodate that? Something to consider as you look at budget process. And let's not forget about implementation delays. The bureaucratic process, procurement issues, or poor planning can stall the progress and diminish public confidence. Knowing these risks help us manage them so much better. Speaking of that, transparency and accountability are certainly come into play if we want to maintain good relations with our community. At the heart of good budgeting is trust, and that's where transparency and accountability come in. Transparency ensures that citizens and stakeholders can see where the money's going. Open budget portals and expenditure tracking systems help achieve this. If you're wondering about open budget portals, it allows citizens to be able to view real time how money is being spent within their systems. It's a high degree of transparency. Accountability means that those who manage funds are answerable to their decision. This comes through regular audits and the work of independent oversight bodies. Together, these principles form the backbone of a democratic financial management process or system. So to give you a sort of a really high-level quick example, let's look at two examples of good and bad. So a success story, some jurisdictions have improved disaster response through timely fund allocation and streamlined the procurement process. Efficiency here stems from clear leadership, agile systems, and smart controls. Now let's flip that over and see one that doesn't work as well. In contrast, certain infrastructure projects have suffered due to cost overruns, delays, the lack of coordination. The lesson: good budgeting on paper doesn't guarantee good results without strong execution. Both examples drive home the importance of structure and adaptability. So some strategies you might consider for effective budget control? Well, works? Well, clearly strong leadership and clear policy. Technology that supports real-time financial oversight. And when I talk about that technology and oversight, it means that you can manage and monitor what's going on. When they talk about real time, how important that is to see where you are. Oftentimes think about the budget being the plan and how well are you executing the plan and where do you need to make adjustments. Training for budget managers to build internal capacity, and crucially, stakeholder engagement to ensure priorities reflect community needs, that implementation gets public buy-in. You know, we talk a lot about this in the 640 course, and it could be, think about it, we talked a lot about it in the 640 course, community engagement, more from an operational perspective for law enforcement, but it's just as important that the stakeholders are in tune to the priorities of the community, and in our case, that they're in tune to the priorities of the agency so that they support the initiative. The message is clear, and good execution isn't just technical, but it's also cultural and rational in its performance. So how does this play with integration into other budget processes? Well, execution doesn't live in a vacuum. It connects planning, implementation, and evaluation. A well-executed budget provides feedback that strengthens the next cycle of planning, and the evaluation identifies what worked and what didn't and what should have changed. This continuous loop helps build smarter, more adaptive budgeting systems. In other words, it's a constant after-action report. It's a review every time. How do we improve? Lessons learned, and how do we improve? So final thoughts on this. Some of the key takeaways from this chapter. Execution and control are where financial discipline becomes real. Transparency and accountability aren't optional. They're absolutely essential to public trust. And continuous improvement, supported by technology and collaboration, is the future of responsible budgeting. So whether you're managing a city, overseeing a department, or just learning the ropes. Remember that budgeting doesn't stop at approval, it starts there.